Today on the show, we're welcoming JJ Virgin. JJ Virgin is a legend in the health industry and is an absolute case study on what it looks like to build a health, fitness, and nutrition empire. But just to get it out of the way, here are some of the main talking points in her bio. Certified nutrition specialist, board certified holistic nutritionist, certified exercise physiologist, and New York Times best-selling author, just to name a few accolades and accomplishments. JJ Virgin has been in the business since the days of leg warmers and spandex thongs and has personally watched the comings and goings of virtually all health and fitness trends, fads, and ideas. She's been health coaching since before health coaching was even a thing, and she is here to tell us that now is the most opportune and awesome time to step into this space. The time is ripe for health coaches right here, right now, and if you don't believe us, you can trust JJ Virgin. The show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of Health Coach Radio can always be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. The wisdom offered up in this episode is literally epic. We have a lot to learn from the one, the only JJ Virgin.
Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Welcome to the show, JJ Virgin. How are you?
Good. Glad to be here.
We're really excited to have you. I'm really excited to have you personally on a personal note because what you're doing in sort of the coaching and health space is kind of completely what I aspire to be. So
What
I'm
you want to
looking
be
to
when
really
you grow up?
I do, yeah. I'm really looking to pick your brain here, but I think a lot of coaches and aspiring coaches are going to get tons of nuggets of wisdom from you because you are really a leader in this space, somebody that we can look to as somebody who's really honestly crushed it. So we would love, as all podcast hosts love, if you could just give us your origin story, the story of JJ Virgin and how you got to where you are.
And here's what I'll say is everyone who is a health coach right now is so flippin' lucky. There is never a better, they are right on the precipice of just huge things happening. This is becoming accepted. We're starting to realize in conventional medicine that people need to be working with coaches. It's the best time. And I look back when I was getting started, and there I was in LA, and me and Mark Sisson and Body by Jake, first personal trainers. And there wasn't even a name for us. And we just were helping people and it became personal trainers. And then I dropped out of my PhD program in exercise physiology because I was taking classes in the dental school. It was so crazy. I ran out of classes and I started studying nutrition. And I knew that I didn't want to go the traditional RD route, and I didn't want to work in a hospital. And there was no job. There was nothing you could do. So I had to create all this stuff that now you look at and go, wow, I would where was becoming a health coach way back when, right? Because it's the perfect, if you love being on that health journey and you love supporting people to be their best self, this is the greatest thing ever. And what's super cool about it is you can decide where you want to focus more. Maybe it's more on, the mindset, personal development piece. Maybe it's more in testing. Maybe it's more in the fitness side of it and how best to support those goals. It's so cool, all the different directions you can go with that. And we didn't have anything like it way back when. So, that was my origin story, was basically helping to create an industry that didn't exist and literally going to when I moved to Florida, I went to get a business license and they told me that I couldn't do that. I was like, I'm going to be a personal trainer. They're like, you can't do that. I was like, no, I think you think I want to be something different than what I'm telling you. Yes.
Wow.
Florida, man, that's a tough state.
Yeah. There's some stuff moving and shaking there, though. I mark my words.
Well, I was in California most of the time. So, now that I'm here, I'm not sure quite what they would do with the whole online. I don't know what they do with me. To me, I'm just a health entertainer. So what are you going to do?
Right? You know what? But I think there's so much value in that because it makes being healthy look fun, look doable, and accessible.
And not boring.
Yeah. Would you expound on that a little bit? Because I think a lot of health coaches have a hard time finding their identity, right? And what they want to do. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, that's my favorite. I love nothing
Good.
more than helping to build a personal brand. And that's where I'm big on collaboration. I think that, we have more sick people than we could ever help and more well people wanting to be even healthier. So there's never ever a reason to fear competition because there's not enough of us. And really people they're going to vibe with you if you're the right fit. So it's really, to me, all of this is just being who you are and turning up that volume. So I am funny. And I found that as I was going through graduate school, it was not funny. Like it was so boring. Like what they were teaching us, you would never remember any of this stuff. They didn't tell stories. They're like memorized. I remember I had this one teacher, insane human being. He took all of the bones of the human body and he moved them and scattered them. And then you had to figure out what they were. And I'm like, how is this practical or useful for me? As an exercise physiologist, I'm never going to be in a graveyard digging up bodies that, you know what I mean? Like, this is not what I do. I don't see why I need to do this. This doesn't make any sense. But along the way, I had a nutrition mentor who was amazing. He's since passed, but his name was Robert Crant. And he was the funniest guy ever. And it was how I started to remember nutrition, because I remember he was like, serotonin and dopamine went to a cocktail party. That was his stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. Now I'll always remember which these things do. Or he'd talk about, why don't you want to eat processed food and margarine? Well, you want competition for your food. If the bugs don't eat it, you shouldn't either. And I mean, the fact that I can remember this 20 years later, right? Because it's funny and you relate to it. So I think we try to, as we go through this, and I've suffered with a lot of imposter syndrome over the years. And so we try to behave like we're smarter, use big words, all this stuff. And that actually doesn't serve us at all, right? I mean, because if we can take these complicated things and make them super easy, user-friendly, easy to understand, and help our clients get a little win, not overwhelm them. The biggest reason someone's going to drop out of your program is because you overwhelmed them with all your information. Like you spammed them,
Right.
If you just give them a little bit and make it fun and accessible and simple, and then give them another thing and they have wins all along the way, you've got them for life. You're going to, make the biggest impact ever. And the coolest thing, and when I wrote The Virgin Diet, this was my goal. I wanted to write a book so simple that it was so easy to share that you never needed to buy the book. Not the best motivation for a book author, but we sold a lot of them, so it was fine. But I just wanted it to be able to be spread that way, right?
Yeah.
And really, if you've got something so complicated that you can't explain it, like if I ask someone what they do and they're like, they head scratcher, I'm like, stop, it just has to be that easy and simple. And then you add your personality. That's what makes you unique and your brand. And I think we all really do need to build our personal brand.
I loved everything you just said, and I want to circle back on some of it and really bring it home for coaches listening. You touched on imposter syndrome. That's something that we hear about a lot from newbie coaches trying to figure out who they are, what their identity is going to be. And a lot of times what we'll circle back with in terms of answering, and you just did, is this idea of stepping authentically into who you are as a person. And for most of us, we had a health transformation that did not involve deep science. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, we feel like we have to go and collect 100 certifications, figure out how to decipher blood tests, put on our imaginary lab coats. And, you said it doesn't serve us as the coach. It also doesn't serve the client because, to your point, their eyes glaze over if we over science them. So I'm really, really feeling this simple approach. And I think, when you talked about your professor that kind of gave you a fun way of learning the science that stuck with you, I think that is such an important takeaway for coaches, because I don't know what you think, JJ, but I believe it's do need to, at a high level, kind of get with the science. Like they need to kind of be able to wrap their minds around it, sort of. Not to a granular level, but to that fun level, like the serotonin, dopamine, or at the party or whatever it was. And so if we can figure out as coaches how to bring in those stories and those tales and those fun little sound bites that create a bit of a scientific connection, then we get buy-in from the clients without glazing their eyes over.
Right.
It's a really interesting dance.
Well, because think of something as simple as like drinking water. Everyone knows they need to drink water, have no idea why. If you can just explain it simply, or tie it into something they care about. Like if you drink water, it's going to help boost your metabolism and lower your stress hormones so you don't store belly fat. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll do that. It's just like, keep it super simple. The other part of that, and so imposter syndrome is real, and I want to reframe it, because it's something that I think is actually the litmus test that you're getting out of your comfort zone. For me, if I'm not feeling a little imposter syndrome, if I'm not feeling a little bit of who am I to do this, then I know that I'm playing small.
Yeah.
So it's something that I go up against all the time. I'll see it in our world because you'll see someone and they've got their name, and then after their name, they've got and then goes to the next line. Like, stop it, stop with all these things, because I've been doing this a long time, like 35 years. I've never been asked for where I went to school. I want them to ask, like 40 graduate and doctoral classes, ask me, what my certifications are. They don't ask. I'm trying to think how many times over 35 years they ask. They're not buying that. They assume that's there. They're only buying the transformation. They want the confidence that you know what you're doing and you can help them get from point A to point B the easiest, the shortest, right? The fastest. And the more life experience you've had, because that's, I don't know about you, but like all the stuff I learned in school pales in comparison to what I learned going through my own transformations and then helping other people do the same. And I will take life experience over everything else every single day of the week. And we all walk in with that, every single one of us. So that's the very first thing we have, is we are an expert because we've gone through some life experience that's going to help us be an amazing coach.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. And Erin and I have taken a couple of certifications together, and I got mine hanging up on the wall I own a CrossFit gym, but I've been doing it 8 years, right? Prior to that, I was in another profession, but nobody has ever once asked me. And even if I said, oh, I graduated from here, at the end of the day, none of that means anything to your client. They don't know anything about those institutions, whether they're valid or not, what you learned. But what they do know is how comfortable they feel with you, right? And your own competency and whether, they connect with you. But, to a certain degree, I think everybody needs to come to the table with something. And I think you can build an entire business just around your own sort of personal experience without any necessarily going to school for nutrition. But I do think to a certain degree, you need some training. I mean, what would you tell? I'm not
poo-pooing training by any stretch. No. I just find that for so many people, they're like, I'm not ready yet, right? Yeah. I'm not ready yet. I need another certification. I'm like, go find a place that resonates with you. Get that certification and get out there. And then if you find, wow, I'd really like to learn more about like lab testing, or I'd really like to learn more about, mindset. Well, go do that. But don't think that you're not ready until you've done those things. Get your basic foundation and then get out there, because the School of Life is going to teach you far more than any other school will.
That's what I was going to ask you, is what do you think makes a great kind of basic foundation for coaches? Basic skills they should feel comfortable either learning if they don't have it already. It really
depends on where they want to focus. I mean, that's one of those things where you really want to make sure you're staying on your side of the line. One of the challenges I had as I was going around is I had a course I taught to doctors called Overcoming Weight Loss Resistance. And I used to teach how to review lab tests and look for the issues that would impact your metabolism and all these things. And it was really challenging because in real life, I wasn't supposed to be doing any of those things with clients. So I'm like, this is challenging. And it's why I made my shift, because I wanted to make sure that I was staying within my scope. So the first thing is to really think about what is it you really want to do, and then what you need to learn in order to be within that scope of practice. The cool thing is when you're doing lifestyle modifications, you're doing some dietary shifts and lifestyle modifications, and which is the biggest part of what we need to do, is help people with stress and sleep and mindset and the right type of exercise and when and what and how much they should be eating, and what about drinking and all that kind of stuff. That's a good core basic health coaching program. It's more how you coach someone through the process than anything else. That I think is is key. But having a good foundational program, and there's a bunch of really good foundational programs, which is super exciting now that there are, right? So you find the one that resonates with you, you go through it. And then if there's something in there that really lights you up and you want to go deeper on, I think that we should always be learning. I'm in 3 masterminds, and I have, just signed in with a new coach 3 weeks ago. So I'm always continuing to learn, but it's not stopping me from doing my work right now. Right?
Cool.
Absolutely.
So I love that you talked about reframing imposter syndrome. And the way you framed it was you should feel a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's how you know you're stretching yourself to just become better and more masterful. So really just randomly, I mentioned when we were off the air that one of my roles is to develop a curriculum and to help develop coaches through the health coaching school. And I just created an exercise for our students that is called Reframing Imposter Syndrome.
Are you kidding? That is
serious.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I just pulled it up because I wanted to kind of, there's about, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 10. I have 10 imposter syndrome statements that we're going to get our coaches to reframe. And so there are things like, I don't know enough. We've talked about that. I'm not primal enough, paleo enough, vegan enough, keto enough. I'm not entrenched enough in the lifestyle that I'm unqualified in terms of like being a licensed medical practitioner. I'm inexperienced. I've never been a personal trainer or a health coach before. I'm not important. I don't have any influence or followers. I'm not special. I have nothing to say that's unique. I'm not entrepreneurial. My practice isn't ready. There are no opportunities. I'd love to talk about a lot of these things, but the one that is number 1 on the list is I'm not perfect. I'm not physically perfect. I don't look perfect. Who's going to buy health from me? I'm pretty ordinary. I haven't had any kind of real dramatic health transformation. That's one of the most meek and consistent imposter syndrome sound bites we hear. So can you speak to that a little bit?
It is interesting. I found that I spend a lot of time with functional medicine doctors, and I run a group with a lot of functional medicine doctors and coaches. And I do find that the people who seem to have the best outcomes with people have gone through some type of their own transformation, or someone in their family or close to them has. So that definitely is something that's key. And I would think most people getting into this, it doesn't mean you've had to go through some massive, like you survived like 5 different types of cancer. It could be just helping your mother make a lifestyle switch. You know what I mean? But it's something that that's generally will draw most people in. I haven't been anybody perfect yet, so I haven't seen one. And it was interesting because I'm 6 feet tall and I have no hips. Like I literally have to buy dresses to fit my shoulders, and then I have to take them in 2 to 3 sizes. Like I have no hips. And I had this client, this really amazing African-American singer, and she goes, I just do not want to look like you. Like, I don't want to look like you. I go, first off, like, there's no way I'm looking like you or you're looking like me ever in a million years. I go, but it does show you, it's like, I'm not going to attract someone who wants to be like curvy, because they'll look at me and go, well, I don't want to look like that. As if like my diet's going to make you lose your hips. You know what I mean? It's like they never had them. Like, so I say that because someone who's struggling with their weight is probably not going to want to go work with someone who they deem to look like they're perfect. Right. They're not going to feel comfortable with them. They're going to feel comfortable with someone who looks a little bit, healthier and better than them. And I actually think that, like, I'm not in perfect health. No one is. It's not possible. And I'm not in perfect shape. And I think that's super important to share those things, because it makes people feel more comfortable with you. So that whole journey and how you feel is important for them too. But also don't let that stuff drag you down. I had a great mentor early on, and she used to say, whenever you said things like this, she said, what you should say next is, so I don't have to. So I don't have to. And so I look at a lot of those things, and I think that they are just you being afraid of stepping out into a bigger place, afraid of showing up bigger. And so you give yourself some excuse like that and say, well, I need to lose some weight, or I need to get in better shape, or I need to be eating a little bit better before I do this, so I don't have to. Right? So, I mean, here I speak at Paleo Effects. I'm not totally paleo. And they haven't killed me yet. Like they haven't thrown anything at me. I remember when they first asked, I go, I'm not totally paleo. Like, so
Right.
yikes.
That's good. It's good.
Are you a health coach who wants more hands-on coaching training? Are you thinking about becoming board certified? Primal Health Coach Institute's Master Coach Certification Program checks both of those boxes. It's live, so you get to ask questions as you go, and we cap the number of students for each round so you get individualized attention and plenty of opportunity to practice your coaching skills with faculty and peers. Coaches become great with experience, and this course fast tracks that educational experience so you don't have to spend years learning directly from clients. You'll know exactly how to coach for optimal results in just 12 weeks. It also prepares you to sit for the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches exam so you can become a board-certified health coach. We only offer this certification program twice a year, and it fills up fast. So be sure to learn more at primalhealthcoach.com and reserve your seat soon.
But first of all, I just want to shout out, I'm also a banana-shaped tall woman. So I like to wear the bananas of the fruit bowl of body shapes, the apples, the pears, were the bananas, and bananas are special too. So because sort of the other end of this is, we've heard this from people too. It's like, well, I've never had a health transformation. I've always been in good shape, like slender, and I've never been overweight. So we have a lot of people who feel like because they haven't had any kind of personal health transformation, they have nothing to share. Or I'm a weight loss coach, but I look good. Who's going to want to work with me? I've never been overweight. I don't know how. Like, what do you think about that? Because
so I go right back to, so I don't have to, because it's so funny. I remember back, and this still happens. I sell a lot of online programs, and I'll hear this. I'll go, well, I can't do this program because I have to cook for my family. Well, I can't do this program because I have to cook just for me. Well, I can't do this program because I eat out all the time. Well, I can't do this program because I eat in all the time. I can't be a health coach because I haven't gone through a major transformation, or I'm not thin enough. I can't be a health coach because I'm too thin. I'm in too good a shape. I'm not in good enough shape. These are all just so I don't have to. See, whoever you are and wherever you are, you're going to attract the right people because of that. So that's what I would look at, is how do you attract the people that are right for you, that you really want to work with? Maybe I love, when I was working one-on-one, my favorite people were really, really hard weight loss cases that had all of these different issues that were making it almost impossible for them to lose weight. Now, someone else might go, that's not the place I want to do. I want to work with really stressed out women who maybe look fine, but inside they're a train wreck. So it's really about finding those people you most want to work with. And, now with the internet, it's so different. The more you can niche, and the more you can get specific, and the more you can choose that audience that you're going to talk to and relate to, and they're going to relate back to you, the better off you're going to be. So those people are there for you. You don't need to change who you are. There's going to be people who want to be with someone who's gone through a major weight loss journey. Most people do not care. They do not really care what you've gone through. They just want to know that you are able to help them. If you going through it the way that you'll be able to do it, great. But that's all they really care about, is, can she help me? That's it. Right? They're caring way more about themselves than you.
Yeah.
So I've got a question around that, because a lot of the people that I speak to on a daily basis, easily more than half of them, probably 3/4, that are interested in this journey, have always worked for somebody else and have no educational or professional background in this right now. Right. And so the question is, gosh, how do I go from here to there? That seems like next to impossible. So this is kind of like a two-part question. First of all, someone who's never actually gone to business for themselves, right? How would you really articulate what entrepreneurship really is and what that's like? And then the second part of that question is, once you decide, I think I want to go there, what do you think a new coach needs to do first?
All right. So I may blow this one up a bit, and sorry about that.
That's
but
okay.
I actually do not believe that entrepreneurs are created.
Okay.
I think it's a mindset. It's genetics, rather. It's like the real true entrepreneurs. Like, there's people who become entrepreneurs because they got fired and they're creating these things. But if you look at the real entrepreneur, they were the kids that had 12 jobs when they were a kid and starting a little business. I mean, I was like the kid that had started my own little business when I was 5 years old, and, had had businesses in high school, had one big job. I got fired in 3 months with too many ideas. They're just very classic personality type. They like to take risks. They do too many things, right? But you can be your own boss. That's a different thing. Like when I look at an entrepreneur is really figuring out how to solve some problem out there and make a completely different shift. What you're talking about is really much more of a solopreneur, a person who's going to have their own business. And what's awesome about that is you're not going to fire yourself, right? You can set your own hours, although that's kind of a joke because it will probably be all the time.
Right.
And it's going to require you to show up in a much bigger way. It's going to require you to step up. It's going to require you to go out there and hustle. Now, here's the cool thing though with health coaches. You could do that, but you don't have to do that anymore because in the world I work in, there are so many doctors, and like we hire my organization hires health coaches. And if they aren't a health coach when they come in, we go send them out to find that. We say, look at all the different programs, go become a health coach. So there's also a lot of jobs for health coaches now too. So just because if you're listening to this going, I don't want to create my own business, you don't have to. You could go work for a doctor. In fact, I just found out about a guy who is actually now a health coach placement agency.
Oh, interesting.
Right? And I know a lot of coaching programs do that. But the other side of it is, it's really much more to me like being your own boss. And being your own boss is an amazing, amazing thing because it gives you control. You get to choose who you want to work with. I remember back when I was a personal trainer firing a client who insulted my then husband. And I said, you can't talk about my husband that way. And she goes, well, yes, I can. I'm paying you. And I go, no, not anymore. And like, you're leaving? I go, yes, you're fired. Like, I don't have to hear this. And I thought, that's so cool. I can fire clients. So, that's the great thing is you can decide what hours you want to work. You can fire clients if you want to, and you can really make a decision about who you most want to work for. Now, the challenge is you're going to have to go find clients. But, when I learned how to, in personal training, build a clientele to fully booked. At first, it took me 6 months, and then I got it down to 3 months. And all I would do was go then to the place where I knew most of my types of clients would hang out, which was the nail salon. And this was like not hard, nail and hair salons. I moved from LA to Fort Lauderdale with no business, went to the most high-end hair salon in town, traded the hairstylist, fully booked clientele with the most important people in town. Within 3 months, I would when I got a new client, I'd say, hey, if you know another client who would like, a training session, I'll give you a free gift certificate for them. If they become a client, I'll give you a free gift certificate. Done, fully booked. So, it's not hard to do. It's just a bit of a mindset shift to realize that you're going to be going out drumming up the business, and it will be scary at first and you will be totally out of your comfort zone. But once you get the hang of how to do that, it's really pretty easy to do. And the cool thing with what we do is if you're good at it, word of mouth will spread, and if you're not having word of mouth, then that's one to talk to your clients and get them to refer you, or to find out if they're not, you need to up your game.
Yeah. And why? Sometimes the reason they're not is because you haven't asked. For a lot of clients,
right?
Yeah, that doesn't even dawn on them. Oh, versus sometimes if you just ask or let them know.
That's why I'd say, hey, I'm looking for 2 more clients and I really love working with you. And I know like draws like. I have some gift certificates. Do you know anyone who might like to work with a coach? And just say, I'll give you a gift certificate. And if they say yes and they become a client, and I always had packages that I sold them, then I'll give you a session. And it was so simple. Like, that is so simple. That would work like word of mouth. I was just listening to a podcast and they were talking about publicity. It was Seth Godin. Was it Seth? I think it was Seth. I'm in his marketing school right now. And he was talking about publicity and PR and how people want this publicity and they think going on TV is going to do something. He goes, I've done all this stuff. It's never sold one book. And I can testify to that too. With the exception of very few things, most of the time being on TV and doing those things doesn't really do anything for you. My gosh, I was on TV every single week on Dr. Phil for 2 years, It's great for your ego and you feel really like a cool person. But beyond that, it's not really doing anything. What does something is you serving someone really well and them being super happy, and you ask them if they know anybody else, and then they tell their friends about you. That is how I built everything I've ever done, through word of mouth.
Great advice. Really good advice. So I want to touch on a thing that you kind of dropped there. This idea around if being a small business owner or a solopreneur is not something you want to work toward, and if you weren't born with that entrepreneur gene, you can go get a job. There are organizations hiring. You mentioned that your organization hires health coaches. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
So we have, I mean, and I think this is, if you think about a lot of people now, like we have online programs, we have a membership, and we do one-on-one coaching. And at first we just needed support because we were getting bombarded in our Facebook communities. I'm like, help, And then I started to have it turns out one of the gals that came to work for me was already a health coach. And I was like, fantastic. She started in one of my programs. I was watching how she was answering questions. I'm like, who is that gal? We got to get that gal. And then we hired her and had her start to support our Facebook group, then had her start going live in Facebook, then started to sell one-on-one coaching sessions, and went, wow, this is great. We need more people. And and then we found another gal in the coaching program who was getting her master's in nutrition, quit her job as a school teacher, came on board with us. And then we found another guy. So, I mean, that's how we've been doing it, is we've been finding people in our community who were raving fans, because I have a lot of health coaches in the community, and then hiring them. But, there's so many people out there now, doctors and experts with online businesses, who need support. And it's a great place for a health coach. If I was a health coach, I would learn social media and really learn how to build communities, because that is such a really important skill that is in high demand, and most people don't know how to do it, right? So I do that. And between that, and then you can offer to do one-on-one coaching. Like our programs, if they're not buying it when we're selling it live, they have to buy it with health coaching attached to it. So there's a lot of online businesses right now that could use health coaching, and I would just query them personally.
So you talked about doctors, functional medicine practitioners looking for health coaches, needing health coaches. And so I subscribe to this Indeed.com job alert, all the health coaching jobs that come available in the United States. And a lot of those job listings suggest that you need to be a dietitian, nurse practitioner, physician's assistant. And so that's holding a lot of coaches back from even throwing their resume in the game. What do you think about that? Should a health coach just take the bull by the horns and apply for those jobs anyway?
Throw on in there, because here's the challenge. We're still flying under the radar here.
Right.
They don't know what health coaches are.
That's right.
That's the challenge. It's not the RD or the PA they're looking for. It's the lifestyle support they're looking for. They just don't know that a health coach is available to do it. So all you need to do is look at what they're really trying to hire. What are they really trying to hire? They're trying to hire support for their patients on all of the lifestyle stuff that they shouldn't be doing, because frankly, I mean, if they could be billing at $300 or $400 an hour, $500, right, and doing their expertise of diagnosing and prescribing, they should have other people doing the support part of that, right? And that's what I teach. Like, I coach a ton of doctors, and I'm like, you should never be doing that part. You should have them, first of all, it's how you create a really leveraged business and diversify it and have an integrated business. It should be you plus health coaches.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think so much of the
just work virtually, because most people don't go, goody, I get to drive all this way to the doctor's office today. And I mean, I figured it out early on. I started doing a virtual practice 30 years ago, because I'd go, gosh, I'm driving all the way in there. And then inevitably I'd drive from Palm Springs to LA, and they go, oh, you know what? I'm not there today. And I'm like, can you come back tomorrow? And I'm like, no, I can't.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went, wait a minute, I'm not doing surgery. This is fine. I can do this over the phone. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the conventional side of things is catching on to the value of this, but they're still kind of in that licensing frame of mind. That, right? It's why they're kind of adding that to the list of.
It only matters
the job
licensing if you're doing things that are outside of that scope. So as long as you're staying within what you should be doing, most of what they need assistance with is just supporting them on making those lifestyle changes. I remember I went through AFMCP, and it's the Functional Medicine Certified Practitioner Training. And I sat down, and they spent under an hour teaching dietary shifts. And the whole dietary shifts were really have your patients do shakes, medical shakes. And then I was sitting in a little workshop, and the doctor goes, yeah, I give them this handout, tell them what to put in their shakes, give them the diet to follow, and I tell them to come back in a month. And I looked at him, and I'm like, you think that works? And here I am like, I'm the student, and I'm not a doctor. And he's like, oh yeah, I go, it does not work. They just are not even telling you. There's no way that would support it. So I think they know now that this types of things need support. They just aren't aware of health coaches. You should absolutely sell yourself and the transformations that you can achieve and what you're doing. That's what they're looking for. It's not the license they're looking for. They just don't know better.
That's right.
That's just it, right? Get out there, get 5, 6, 7 clients under your belt, catalog them, take note of who they were, how often you saw them, what you covered in each session, and what their outcome was. You submit that with your resume instead of the fact that, oh, I'm not a licensed dietitian or I'm not a licensed nurse, but this is what I've accomplished in the last year or 2 years.
Yeah.
I will bet you'd have an interview.
Yeah, no absolutely. Question. And hey, what's the worst that happens? They say no.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You'll never see them again. It doesn't matter, And that's what I'd also look at. Like for me, I would go to the IFM annual conference. I go to the Integrative Healthcare Symposium conference. I go to A4M in December in Vegas, and I would network like a fiend.
Great advice.
And I would sell up what I do. Because honestly, I mean, all my friends are docs and they're all looking like, this is one of the things we're always talking about. I'm trying to find them, So they are out there. And those are the doctors that are more likely to do this. And a lot of them also have online businesses and they need the support there as well. I'd also reach out to people that you see with big online businesses and say, and go that way too.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen even within our own group, like Tyler Cartwright and Louise Villasenor with Keto Gains. They're looking to hire coaches relatively soon. We've had our own Allie Watts hire a couple of health coaches. Kate Giamarello, she's Keto Living 101. She's hired some. So a lot of these coaches that do have that entrepreneurial side, right? That's their deal. And they've grown. Now they need help. So I think we're going to see this continue to spiral and grow. Yeah. For sure.
Oh, no question. We're just at the tip of the iceberg. And again, I think it's really getting connected with who you are. Like, do you want to build a big business, or are you more comfortable working for someone and with a team and just go do that thing? Like, thankfully we aren't all entrepreneurs. That would not work. It would be a mess, and there'd be chaos everywhere.
Cool. True. So you mentioned a couple times that you're in a few mastermind groups. You also mentioned that you have a coach yourself. I think this is really important to dive into because you're somebody who's at the top of the game and you're still hiring a coach and you're in these mastermind groups. Can you talk about the importance of this for you and for all of us?
I was really fortunate when I was 30, I had this mentor, and I moved in with her because she was going to teach me how to become successful in business. I was a personal trainer, but I was stuck. I had a couple trainers working for me. I was speaking, but I couldn't figure out how to get any further than that. And literally for months, she didn't teach me anything about business. This was a woman who grew up in a trailer park and was a self-made multimillionaire. And for months, all she did was train me on mindset. And I kept going, hello, I just sold my business and moved into your house. Like I'm running out of money. And she goes, well, you're just not ready. And literally that gave me the biggest foundation for all of this. But then after that, I was kind of like, didn't have anyone and I got stuck again. And I couldn't figure out, I'd always heard, when you break your first million. And I was like, but I couldn't even figure out how to get there. Like I was always stuck at my big goal with her was to figure out how to make $25,000 a month. I was like, that's it, I couldn't get past it. That had been my goal. And I had no one to help me. I didn't know what to do. And it's funny. I was just at an event this last weekend, my event, Mindshare Summit, and I gave this award to one of my longtime friends, Dr. Joseph Mercola. And I said, what's interesting, Joe, is you don't even realize that you changed the entire trajectory of my career and so many other people's careers because of it. Because I wrote a book that I couldn't decide whether to publish or self-publish. And a friend said, go have dinner with Joe. He can give you some ideas. And it was when Joe was just starting his health site. I knew him from speaking days, but he was just starting his health site. And he goes, JJ, the money is in the list. And I was like, what list would that be? Because I don't have one. I was on Dr. Phil at the time, but I didn't have a little opt-in box on my website. Important little thing that I forgot. And it also said, read the 4-Hour Work Week. And so I picked up the 4-hour work week. My big joke is that there must be a hidden chapter because I've been working like 80 hours a week ever since. Like I don't know where that 4-hour thing came in, but I was like, was that, what? I read that book, and in that book, he cites Dan Kennedy, who's a marketing guy I used to love reading, but I got to meet Dan Kennedy once in person. He's like, got these like weird sideburns, and like, I just didn't relate to him. He's a gruff dude. But he did an interview with this gal, Allie Brown, and Allie Brown was a self-made multimillionaire. And I really related to her. I really resonated with her. And so I sought her out. And even though I was broke, like super broke, like my check to her bounced broke, that I couldn't afford not to join her mastermind group. And I leapt in that first year, and I was like super broke, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And that first year I did $550,000. And I stayed in her group, obviously. And I joined another group the next year. So now I'm in 2 groups. And I go to $880,000. And then I thought I better just implement. I better take a year off, and I'll just be by myself, and I'll focus, and I'll put my nose down, I'll implement. And you know what happened the next year? Nothing. Like, it's like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, you sure. All of a sudden you get bogged down in things that are not that important. And so the next year I joined Brendon Burchard's mastermind. And that was also the year that I launched my New York Times bestseller, The Virgin Diet. And I launched that book bedside with my son in a coma, hovering between life and death. And if I had not been in that mastermind group, Brendon actually flew to me to help me with that launch, where I'll be eternally grateful, like what he did for me. But had I not been there, I don't know how I would have gotten through that. And I don't know how I would have ever pulled that off. And so that was the year I broke $1 million in the hospital. I broke $2 million 3 months later, and everything changed from that. And I've been at masterminds. Generally, I'm in, like right now, I was counting them up because I have my own in health, and then I have another one with a friend, but it's really one we all participate in. Then I'm in another one, and then I'm in another one. So I'm actually in 4 at the moment, and I have a coach. So it is the thing that I found made the most significant impact in my business is having a coach who I knew will not let me play small. Allie Brown used to always say, you're JJ freaking virgin. Like if I said, I'm thinking I should go do X, Y, or Z, she goes, really? You're JJ freaking virgin. That's ridiculous. Stop it. So she really helped me break through the imposter syndrome and reframe it to know that like every time I step up, I'm going to start to feel that. And that's a good thing. And so that's it. I think that's one of the key secrets is find a coach who will not let you play small, who understands where you want to go and can help get you there. This is what I look for, by the way. I look for someone who has failed and failed and failed. I do not trust people who have either never done it themselves or have done it once and that's it. You're going to have failures, right? You're going to learn far more from the failures than you ever are from the successes. I mean, I think Mark and I were on a panel once just like talking about all of our massive blow-ups.
Yeah.
So
yeah. He talks about that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you're going to have failures. That's why, when you go back to health coaches, hey, you're not going to have success with every single client because you can't control how committed they are. Although what I found is when people they pay attention. The worst thing you can ever do is give someone something for free. And you're going to learn from every single client that you work with. And every time you get that experience, it just makes you better. So super duper important, but don't look at every single one like you're going to have 100 clients that are going to be massively successful. It isn't going to happen. It's not possible. So, and you're going to learn more from the people that you struggled with. You'll also learn who not to take on as a client, which is probably the most important of all. Yes.
And these are all lessons you learn by getting out there and doing it.
Yeah. I mean, none of these you're not reading these in a book.
No. Awesome. Wow, JJ, thank you so much for gifting us with this time. I know we've got a hard stop and we want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we say thank you, thank you, thank you?
Yes. I just think for everybody listening, you're a health coach that, first of all, like you're so lucky to be where you are right now. This is, we're going to look back 10 years from now. And I look at health coaching like personal training was 30 years ago. And then all of a sudden it just went poof. Like right now is the time to get in and to work your butt off, make a name for yourself. And then really, we get to build a business that we want to work in. So again, think, does that mean that I'd like to work with a team? Do I want to have a boss? Do I want to create a big business? You get to decide. There's no rules here. There's no right way to do this. There's your way to do this. So it's just a great time. And I just love this profession so much. And I just wish it's like whatever I can do to support it, I'm going to, because I think this is what's going to change the trajectory of the world's health, which is in a state of total crisis.
Absolutely. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, JJ.
You are welcome.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.